I'm up here, we're gonna start hunting this weekend, and I'm gonna go and check some cameras and see if any of my deer are starting to show up. There's a couple of real good bucks that I'm waiting to show up from last year. One in particular is my target deer. He never ever shows up until the first week and a half, 2 weeks of November. I have cameras all summer, all winter. I don't get any pictures of him until November on one of these scrapes. So I'm gonna head into a bit of a slough bottom where I had tons of activity of him last year and see if he's showed up or not yet. He's gonna be a monster if he shows up, because last year from a 3 to a 4-year-old he put on over 20 inches at least, and I'm excited to see what he's gonna do this year. I can't see why he wouldn't put on at least another 10, 5 to 10. So check some spots. It's such a tough spot to hunt is the problem. It's so thick, and I haven't been able to figure out exactly how to get in on him, so I guess we gotta see if he shows up first. Now, I'm fairly positive that most whitetail hunters can relate to the feeling of having one particular deer dominate your dreams. I had first found this buck way back in the summer of 2014 when he was still in velvet, something that's very rare up in the bush where we hunt. I knew immediately that he was a very young deer, but one that could turn into something special if he survived the harsh winters. I tried my best to keep tabs on him throughout the season, but never did lay eyes on him. Heading back the following year, I was excited to see what he had turned into after a very mild winter. No way. You guys, this is the deer I've been trying to find all year. That is him. That was him last year on this exact same scrape. And he was a young deer last year. He had no main beams and his tine lengths were short, and he had crazy potential. We never did see him all year, but I had pictures of him here and way to the north. And I have been looking for that deer all season because I knew he was going to be a slammer this year. And judging by those pictures that I just got of him, he is a tremendous deer. Although he had put on over 20 inches from the year before, I knew that he was still only 3 or 4 years old. He was already one of the biggest bucks I had on camera that year, but he was in a really tough spot to hunt, and my attention had been drawn to a deer we named Leroy further to the north. And I'm just taking a look at it now, and there's been a couple of real good deer in here. In fact, Leroy's been through here pretty much every single day, but just either before or after dark. But every time he's got his nose on the ground and he's cruising, so I know it's just a matter of time before we catch him cruising in the day. I began to obsess over this deer and ran as many covert cameras as I could throughout his area to try and figure out how to hunt him. I was able to narrow him down to a relatively small area and was getting tons of pictures of him, but it was so thick that I wasn't sure where to set up, so the season passed without ever spending any time sitting for him. And when I checked my cameras at the end of the season, I was relieved to see a video of him walking through the slough bottom on December 1st. He was tired and beat up, but he had survived the season. So this is this first scrape here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's pretty beat up. It's one of my best community scrapes that I have. I'm gonna check that one first. This is where I had tons of pictures and video of him last year. I had a video of him shredding this little baby tree 2 yards in front of my camera last year. It was kind of cool. Judging by all these willows that have been smashed in here, there's been a good deer move through. I don't know which one it is, but the way my deer smashed trees last year wouldn't surprise me if it's him. That deer that I'm after has been back. He finally just showed up. I got a couple of videos of him. He was here November 4th, which is, that was yesterday. No, 2 days ago. Man, that thing is huge. 2 videos of him. For the last 2 years, his 6-point antler has always been his left antler, and this year for some reason it's his right antler. It's the exact same deer, no doubt about it. Same frame, bigger, heavier, and just a wall of tines, but I never would have guessed his antler would be on that side. Just a giant deer, just a giant buck.
Now, hunting public land bush deer is completely different than hunting your typical farmland whitetail. As far as I'm concerned, they're barely even the same species. Because there is no field or designated food sources for these deer, they are more nomadic and don't pattern like a regular whitetail. Rather than moving between food and bedding, they feed throughout the day as they go about their business, completely unaware of human presence. This is the number one key aspect to why we hunt these deer. Rather than chasing an animal that is primarily nocturnal and incredibly sensitive to human pressure, we hunt deer that have never seen a human before. Most of their movement is in the middle of the day, and we've never been busted by a deer due to a bad wind direction. To put it in simpler terms, you actually stand a fighting chance because you're hunting a deer that is doing exactly what his ancestors have been doing for over a century. It's certainly not easy, but it's very rewarding. And when you put it all together, well, it's probably the most fair chase whitetail hunt you'll find anywhere in the world. No private land, and no bait piles. Just thousands of square miles of forest and one particular deer. It's unlike any hunt you'll ever experience.
We're up in Dana's super secret hiding spots. He had to blindfold me coming in here. We're up here going to relocate some stands for him. Found a good spot. We're getting some pictures of some good deer. Just kind of a tough area to hunt. A lot of cover and underbrush. So we went for a hike back in the woods and found a decent opening. A couple scrapes along the spruce trees and low spots there. So I'm gonna head in there and put up the spinny stand and put up the gorilla. And Dean will be sitting there. Him and Darcy will be sitting there tomorrow morning. We're gonna sit there for the rest of the day actually and see what's going on. But other than that, that's about it. Just having lunch.
Now, I imagine that every whitetail hunter out there is cringing at this point because of the noise and disturbance we're making the day of our hunt. For a farmland deer, you wouldn't dream of driving your quad to the base of your stand and slamming it together without letting it sit for at least a few weeks. But in the bush, this is exactly how we do things. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that these deer aren't smart. It's simply that they don't see humans as natural predator because we're so far back in the bush that the only humans they see are simply cruising around on their quads down the cut lines. It took us most of the morning to hike every square inch of this scrape line before finding a spot to set up. We then had to pull down stands from another location and chainsaw a trail into this spot. All said and done, we finally had the stands hanging just before noon, and figured we would crawl into them and see what was moving through for the rest of the day.
We're not even done setting up the tree stands. We had a couple deer come in on us, 2 does. I'd spotted him out there and Corey was rustling around. I was trying to get his attention forever. And they knew something was up, but bush deer, they don't know, they don't care, so they come into like 25 yards and then figured that was close enough and then they just skirted their way out. But it's a good sign. We've seen these 2 deer and a buck when we walked in here to check this place out, so I think we're in the right spot. We're gonna hurry up and get settled and then sit for the rest of the day, and maybe that big 6x5 will come by. That's the deer we're after, so. And you know he's in the area now. Just after 11 o'clock we finally got set up. We had to come in here. We weren't 100% sure where we wanted to be. Corey smoked a monster buck yesterday, and so we got up super early, came out here, checked some cameras, had an idea where I wanted to be, and got pictures of some monster bucks in this area. So we went for a big hike. We had to go get a stand from another spot, from Leroy's spot, and now we're set up, finally, hunting here. And as we walked in to find this spot, we found a buck working a scrape back here. We didn't see how big he was, but we know it was a buck. And as we were setting the stands up, just getting ready to crawl in, we had 2 does go by, and then a buck that just ripped by now. So You know, we made a heck of a lot of noise in here. And we've only been here for a few minutes and we've seen 4 deer now. So if that doesn't tell you we're in the right spot, then I don't know what does. I'm just hoping that big 6x5 comes through. There's him and there's another monster deer in here. I only got one picture of him and I can't tell exactly what he is, but he's a no-brainer, so. If they're moving through, one of them will eventually make a mistake, so. Right now I'm just trying to make some supports for my tree stand. The shooting rails on these stands are a little bit too low, so I'm going to wedge them up a little bit and then it makes it a little bit nicer to shoot off of. That's way better, eh? Way better.
Shortly after getting set up, we immediately started seeing deer. I was confident that we were in the right spot and was excited for the next couple days in this stand. Now normally, we very rarely see any deer in the last hour of daylight, and as we were getting ready to start packing up for the night, we heard a crash behind us. I had spent the past 3 years dreaming of the day that I would finally see this buck in person. And now only 4 hours into my very first sit for him, well, there he was. He had come in crashing behind a doe, and although Corey could see him in the camera, I didn't have a shot where he was standing. Whatever you got, whatever you can. Dude, he's big. Oh, holy man. Dude, give him another one. No, give him another one.
Dude, we just killed 2 of the biggest deer in this bush in 2 days, Corey. I've been hunting this deer for 3 years. I got pictures of him as a 3-year-old. He wasn't big enough. We let him go. Last year I had pictures of this deer. He was my #1 hit lister. I didn't know where to hunt him. This year he showed up and he is a freaking monster. And we come in here, it's just a row of tines.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh. We came in here this afternoon, set up this tree stand, and we just killed an absolute monster whitetail. An absolute monster. We heard a big crash behind us, and I seen a buck chasing a doe, and he stopped, and Corey's like, it's the big one. It's the big one. And I couldn't see him. And that doe come right by us. We just killed 2 170 plus inch deer chasing does the 7th and 8th of November. An absolute freaking monster.
It's absolutely him.
Oh, no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. It's
I
him.
can see him right now.
I know. It's no doubt about it.
That is the deer I wanted to kill more than any other deer in this bush. I don't care if there was a 200-inch non-typical. That was the deer I wanted. And
you got him,
we
buddy.
just killed him. I've been waiting 3 years to put my hands on this deer. 3 years.
Yep. There's no question.
Thanks a lot, dude.
You got him, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
We got him.
What a spot we picked today. I'm wearing black ski pants because we weren't even really supposed to be hunting today. These are my tree stand setting up ski pants. It's so warm out.
Oh man, I can't believe this, huh? Oh jeez.
Look at those tines.
Look at that deer. Dana.
Dude, this thing is huge.
Oh my.
Look at how heavy.
Look at those tines.
Look at the size of that deer.
Look at that deer.
Just a row of tines. 6x5. Last year, in the last 2 years, this deer has had his 6th point on this antler. This year he grew it on that side. I don't know why it's even longer, but awesome length. Look at the mass on him, and he's heavy.
He's heavy.
An unbelievable deer.
Dude, that is just a gigantic bush deer. Look at that thing.
Look at the size of this buck. Like, it's a row of tines. It's just a row of tines. Hands down my biggest deer ever. And like I said, there was a lot of big deer in the bush this year. There isn't a single deer that I wanted to kill more than this deer right here.
Dude, man, that deer had your name all over it. Look at that thing, dude.
He's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Nice and wide. Long beams. That's crazy. I can't be more thankful.
Oh, dude.
Good brow tines on him.
When I first found this buck 3 years ago, I had no idea how things were going to play out. No matter how many giant bucks I had on camera over the years, my interest always came back to this particular deer. Although I had never spent much time sitting in a stand hunting him, I had spent the past 3 years researching and learning as much as I could about this deer until I was finally ready to take a swing at him. I was very fortunate to encounter this buck on my very first day hunting him. It was far from your average whitetail hunt, and truly a memory that I will cherish forever. But I must admit that checking my cameras up in the bush will never quite be the same, knowing that this old friend won't be on them.